Guess who's back, y'all? We got Mansal Denton, a longtime friend of the show, the founder of Sacred Hunting, and one of my close friends. Mansal's been on the show multiple times before. We usually talk hunting, nature, and a whole host of other things, and he just got back from a really rad trip. One of the things that I love about Mansal is he's done some pretty crazy experiences, like tracking Siberian Tigers out in Eastern Russia, or he just got back from Utah where they, for science, went and darted, not killed, but knocked out a mountain lion to get details and information on it, and just really, really fascinating stuff, and conservation efforts and all sorts of different things. But he's a guy who goes around the world just doing really cool shit, and I'm really inspired by that. He reminds me a lot of a young Boyd Vardy, who instead of making his backyard wild, he continues to seek out and find wild places, both in nature and inside himself. I always love podcasting with Mansal. He's a regular on the show for a reason. He's one of my good buddies, and he's always doing cool shit. So you guys are going to be fascinated with this podcast the same way I was. We've got a lot to talk about in regards to what's coming up. Without further ado, my brother Mansal, welcome to the podcast. Mansal, the return, baby.
I'm back.
I'm stoked to have you back.
I'm glad we're both in camo too.
Yeah, it is lovely. I mean, I wasn't planning on wearing the full regalia, but it is whitetail season, and got some tags, and from a regenerative standpoint, they're the only species we have on the land that's not regenerative, because we, for our exotics, we give them inputs, we feed them. The black buck have a very low impact, but more so, they can't reproduce because there's no males with them. So when we put the high fence in, we left the gate open and let them all leave, and about half the herd left, all the males, and half the females stayed and had their last babies. So rather than let them eat all the grass and become old, inedible, we wanted to harvest. So we're working hard for that. They're surprisingly challenging for only 118 acres with a high fence. It seems like a harvest, and yet we're spotting stock, not using feeders, and doing shit like that. So it's they know when it's hunting season, as you know.
Yeah, it's just another reminder of how intelligent they are and how aware they are.
Absolutely. Yeah, I thought whitetail's going to be easy on the first elk hunt I went on. It was up in Joseph, Oregon. And they were coming right up to the rig, like we could take selfies with them. But they knew, they absolutely knew. And then I saw like the ass of one elk in 6 days, and I was like, okay, this is why my uncles were pissed off a lot of the time. This is what it's all about. All right. It's like fishing. You're in there for 8 hours, and you get like one nibble and no fish. It's kind of the deal sometimes.
That's one of the beautiful aspects of hunting and fishing, that's such a reflection for life too.
Absolutely, brother. Well, we always talk hunting. I'm definitely going to talk hunting with you, and I also want to bridge the gap for other people who may not be into hunting on some of the reasons you might want to get into it and all that fun stuff. But you recently got back from a trip, and I want to hear all about it. You sent me videos, and the hair, I don't have much hair, but what little hair that I had on the back of my neck stood the fuck up, and I was like, oh, wow, that's a whole different thing. So dive into this, because you traveled the world doing super cool shit. And I want to remind people too of the other stories that you have from, making your way to the Gobi Desert and different places like that. When you feel necessary, just run those back. They never get old, brother.
Yeah. I just got back from Utah, and as I've mentioned before, I am obsessed with cats and felines, and
loves the pussy.
I love the pussy. they as far as the predators are concerned, they're just the best land animals, and I can watch them for so long, watch how they move, watch how they interact with the landscape, and there's kind of a regal nature to them. So for me, it's just some people want to go on hikes, and I just want to go all over the world, see beautiful new cultures and environments, and try and find the cats. And so luckily I got invited by a conservationist organization. They're out in Utah, and they basically use hounds. So they use like 7 to 9 dogs, very well trained. I mean, some of these dogs are like the best trained in the world at what they do specifically. And these are like $50,000 to $75,000 worth of dogs that we're running. And basically what we do is we let the dogs go in a specific environment where we know that there are mountain lions, and they'll try and pick up a scent. And I'll get a little bit more into the relationship with the dogs because it's really cool. But basically, the whole point of the trip was to find mountain lions in the mountains of Utah, south of Salt Lake City, and either put GPS collars on them or replace collars that had died. And we also, checked their blood, checked their teeth, checked their height, weight, get all kinds of data so that we could, filter this data. I think it's a necessary evil, but in the West and in this country, kind of the way that we maintain and preserve wildlife is often done in a very scientific manner. And so some of this data was really like beneficial for making an argument that mountain lions need to be treated this way or a different way. And so that's why we did it.
We're like the aliens to the animals, You didn't probe it, did you?
Exactly. We didn't. I had this conversation with people when we were out there because it felt almost identical to like what they were doing. And honestly, I had some moral dilemmas about it because it's invasive. It's not, the animal doesn't want it. The animals, a big part of my journey with that was like holding space for the animal in various different ways, particularly with eye contact, because she's awake, the whole time. She's just not able to move. So anyway, we got really spoiled because, as you're talking about hunting, sometimes you don't see anything. First day we're there, by 8:30 a.m., we were already on a cat. And the cat was already treed. So what happens is the mountain lions, and most cats in general, they're fast as hell, like faster than anything you can think of out in the wild. Definitely faster than the dogs, but they run out of oxygen fast. And when that happens, they go to the top of the tree, and because they know it's safe, and they learned that it was safe. So the dogs find a track, they chase it up into a tree. We can hear it. The guy that I'm with, he's the houndsman. I mean, they're some of the best, houndsmen in the country, and they're listening to their dogs, and they can hear the different barks of the dogs, and they can hear that some of the dogs think that they've treated a mountain lion, but some don't. So he's waiting to figure out, which dogs think that there's one in the tree, and then and so he's listening. It's a really unique experience.
Is it the varsity guys that say he's in the tree, or the B team, the B squad?
100%. And the team is really like, a pack, just like a wolf pack or a human pack. Like everybody has their role. There is 100% the alpha. You've got the woman, the female Mercedes. She's 12-year-old, or she's 8-year-old dog, and she's old. And she's got scars all over her face from mountain lions.
Damn.
She knows what's up. And she's not the first one to capture a scent, but she's the most right. So like all the young ones, the young bucks will get it, and they'll be running down the path, and they'll be excited, but they'll be running the wrong direction. And Mercedes is like, actually, guys, you're on the track, but you're going the wrong way. It's this way. So they all kind of have a role. But yeah, within like an hour, 8:30 in the morning, we had this animal up in the tree, and then we went over there. And the beautiful thing was, you'd think, in a process like this, you get there, you have a wildlife biologist dart the animal, tranquilize it, and then you go about doing your thing. But there's no telling whether we'll actually get a mountain lion in the tree. So the DNR, Department of Natural Resources rep, was in Salt Lake City. We had 4 hours just one-on-one with the animal. We couldn't leave because we had to make sure that it stayed in the tree. And there was nothing else to do. And so that really became my ceremony. And, instead of a plant medicine ceremony, sitting on a, beanbag cushion or inside a maloca, I was just in the sun, no cell service, no nothing, just looking into the eyes of a 90-pound female mountain lion.
Damn. So when you dart her, is she in the tree, or how do you get her down?
she's in the tree, and these were some of the interesting things. So we knew who this mountain lion was. The houndsman, this was one of the first ones that he had collared, so he knew her. He didn't go so far as to believe that she knew him. I was, obviously I don't know, but I'm pretty sure she knew him.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure some part of her could understand, like, this is not going to be comfortable and I don't want to be near them, but I don't have to fear for my life. So when she got darted, she stayed in the tree. A lot of times the animals will run out of the tree. They get darted, something's uncomfortable, and they're gone, and you got to find them again. This one stayed. She went to sleep in the tree, and basically we had to go up, tie a rope around its legs, and then lower her down, and then do the work on the ground. So she basically stayed pretty safe.
That's cool. She was able to be unconscious up there and not fall out of the tree. I mean, that speaks to the the prowess of such an apex predator,
Yeah. It was funny because so many times during the 4-hour process, she's so intelligent. And when we would be on our phones, because he would try and show us something. He'd show us like the first picture of this animal on our phone. When we were all looking at our phone, she would know that our attention was not on her, and she would start to make moves. And then we'd have to go like scream and yell and make sure she stayed up in the tree. But she was paying attention, and she also had particular attention on the houndsman. Like if I was going pee or something, she wouldn't do anything. But if he was doing something else, then she knew, like, the leader here is distracted. I'm going to try and make my move. But a lot of times she behaved just like a house cat. And I see the behavior of house cats every day because I have 2 of them. And so there were times where people thought she's trying to go. And intuitively it felt like, no, she's resting or she's stretching. And she fell asleep. I have some great pictures of her just like sleeping with her paws over each other in the branches. So she chilled.
That's awesome. And one of the things we do when you lead hunts is we have a prayer to the apex predators of the land. And out in Texas, and a lot of places in the U.S., that usually involves, some form of snake and the mountain lion. So it's pretty cool that you get to have that level of direct interaction. I've told the story a couple times on this podcast of coming here as the steward of the land in Lockhart and just assuming my role, and then meditating down by the Maloka Pond. And I'm meditating, my eyes pry open, and I won't tell the whole story, but I see a cottonmouth swimming towards me that's like 4 feet long, and I'm like, holy shit. Long story short, it rests its head on my fucking knee, like in my lap, and we just hold eye contact, and I'm like, what the fuck's happening? And I realize, oh shit, you're the guy. I'm sorry, I didn't ask for permission. May I be the steward of this land? And I got permission. And once I could feel the yes from my body, then it just moved on. But it was like, I'm here too, this is my land that you're with, that you want to take care of. And fucking powerful moment. And a lot of people don't understand that either, like everyone's got what is Tate Fletcher? He says everyone's a contrarian. We posted a clip of that online. Fit for Service did, and you're like, oh, you wouldn't do that with a grizzly bear. You wouldn't. Man, I did it with the snake. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I wouldn't. I don't know what the fuck I'd do in a lot of situations. I've talked with Tim Corcoran and different people who have their own bear medicine experiences where they made it out alive, and no, the fucking bear didn't lay its head in its lap. It was a totally different experience, but. That was a powerful one. I can imagine, I can only imagine what it would be like to be in the presence of an animal that is that thing. Like there's genetic history there, that every part of your body is saying, holy shit, right? And that even though consciously that you're safe and that it can't attack you, many a human has succumbed to fucking big cats, throughout fucking history. Like it's embedded in us. It's in the morphic resonance, the morphic field. Like it's there. It's not there in a little bit. It's there in a big way.
It's honestly, it's the biggest one. So if you look back at our species, evolving on the savanna, we got big cats there, lions. There used to be like saber-toothed cats, and there were, obviously leopards rather. And, so there's an anthropologist who did a study on baboons. He wanted to see like how do primates relate with cats in particular, and especially in relationship to shelter. And he went to a cave where he knew baboons would stay at night, and he was in the back of the cave. The baboons came in, weren't aware of his presence, and when it got fully dark, he made his presence known. The baboons went literally apeshit. I mean, just screaming and you can't, baboons are gnarly. They got fangs.
Why? But I don't understand. Like, he have his fucking face ripped off. Why would he make his presence known at that point?
He is bless him for his research mind for putting himself in that situation. But the thing that he realized, the biggest conclusion was, no matter how fearful those baboons were of him in that cave, they would not leave. They would not leave the cave. He spent the whole night with a troop of baboons shrieking and making noise because they would not leave, because they knew what was out there were cats, death.
Damn.
And that has stayed with us. And that's one of the reasons why people, our species feels so safe in shelters and homes, even like a little cottage, little cabin. We feel so good. And so, I realized on this trip how much of a deep, deep relationship to predators humanity has. And of course, cats in particular. But it was a very old thing. And you've experienced this, so I can make it a little bit more relatable for people. When we go hunting, when you kill an animal, I think people would understand that touches a very old part of ourselves, right? Because we've hunted for our whole life. But by the same token, like our ancestors, there's this great quote: "Our first religion was to kill God and eat him." And so our ancestors not only saw the animals we killed as gods, but they saw these even rarer predators as like the ultimate deities. Right? And so there's something, I think, that moves within us when we have that close relationship with a predator that is, similar to people do ayahuasca and they experience God through, relationship to the plant. And I think that's also possible.
Even bringing up Aya, I haven't had, of all my experiences have been with North American animals, hence my children's names, but I think that a lot of people, you go to the Amazon, they experience jaguar medicine or anaconda or any like the great species that are known in the ayahuasca folklore, and in that pantheon, and you can become that animal, like that's a whole that's a whole ass experience to become an animal like that and to live and see as that animal sees. I think humans are we've conquered the earth for fucking better or worse, right? For a lot worse, probably, for the rest of the earth, and hopefully we can steer the shit back towards Mother Nature and away from Mother Culture, as Daniel Quinn puts it. But throughout human history, before all these technological advancements, with gunpowder and all sorts of other shit, like we're kind of in the middle. We're predator, we're forager, we're also prey. Like our eyes go forward, they're not on both sides of the head like an iguana. And we can't rotate our head, 180 degrees like a bird. But at the same time, we're not the apex, not by any fucking means. And I think for all of the tens of thousands of years, 2 million years ago, 1 million years, 200,000 years, I don't think there's any fucking consensus on how long humans have been here. But I would venture to say it's longer than some people think, just due to the fact that we thought advanced culture started 10,000 years ago, and then you see Göbekli Tepe and a lot of these other things. They redate, at least in part, many scientists have redated the pyramids and things like that. So, it would make sense, that some of this stuff is so deeply woven into us. It's beyond our conscious mind, but it's in there. You know? Like Jung said, like the conscious mind is the iceberg that you see above the water, and the unconscious is the whole last 90% of it below water. That's how much is communicating with us at all times, that knows the history, that knows everything that happened in our ancestors' lives, and it's embedded in us. Yeah. And,
there's so much that's beautiful about Christianity and Jesus Christ as a wisdom tradition and as a wise person. And obviously nothing is perfect. I think one of the reasons so much of our relationships to predators today is askew is because, Judeo-Christian values, which permeate the country, were evolving at a time when the key way of living with animals was through livestock. I mean, Jesus was a shepherd. You have these sheep. The sheep, as I'm sure you know, are literally one of the most vulnerable animals
I'm
to
a shepherd,
predators.
baby. Well, that's the thing. Yeah, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. They've been domesticated beyond the ability to survive on their own.
Right. And so when you have that dynamic, you have basically a religion that evolves around essentially like we have to protect from these predators, from these wolves, other animals that could kill the flock. I understand where they're coming from, but it's very different than the indigenous of North America. They didn't have domesticated animals like that other than the dog. And so when they saw mountain lions, when they saw wolves and things, even down in the jungle, when they saw jaguars and anacondas, these were mystical, magical, godlike deities, not something that was a threat to our livelihood that needs to be, eradicated. Which, if you look at our policies towards coyotes and wolves and things in the United States, it's a mess on both sides, partially because of this, legacy of deep-seated fear of the animals, which is understandable.
Yeah, even the snake stuff. There was one comment on the snake post where someone I had mentioned as above, so below, and it was taken out of context, but somebody was like, careful, that's how Lucifer got thrown out of heaven, and the serpent, it makes perfect sense that the serpent was on your lap. I'm like, damn, dude, there's still, like, even, we all have bubbles, we live within bubbles, right? And Austin's its own funny-ass bubble, and I'm kind of in that bubble and kind of not in that bubble in many ways, as you are, right? You're not the Austin influencer bubble, but you know a lot of people that are, and it is what it is. But it's funny to me that there's still like people on the planet that wholeheartedly subscribe to snakes are the devil. They're Satan, right? And it's like, just go one continent south and they're revered, right? Then that's you look at a Native American spirit wheel. They could be in the east as like the fertility of the planet. And they could be in the west as the shedding of the skin and the renewal of life as we enter the decomposition phase and the death cycle. Like they're anywhere you place it, it's a medicine. It's a medicine spirit animal, right? And it's in all the medicine decks, the snake medicine. So it's interesting. It is interesting that's still. I mean, there's 2 billion people that are Christian. You count all. I forget how much it is. I think it may be close to 3 billion if you count, or 4 billion if you count all the Abrahamic religions together. That's a fucking big number. And it's not poo-pooing on all of it. I think there's gems in anything,
Totally.
But at the same time, like that, you can start to think about even like sex in this culture, right? And people talk about the Catholic Church and different things like that, but it's really like the Puritans that came here and the Quakers that came here that really wanted to impose that stuff, So like you think about things like that, and it's like it's easy to overlook it and just take it as this is what it is. It's like kids are born with an iPad. They're like, yeah, iPads exist. Big fucking deal. They weren't around before iPads. We were around before cell phones. So like now we get to see that. But if it happened so before, even not so long before you, but just before you were born, 10 years before you were born, you just take that as fact, as not like why is it this way?
Right.
Why do we agree on it as this way?
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned the screens, the iPads and everything. That was actually one of the most poignant reflections during the whole process. I don't think I'm as bad as some people, but I definitely don't have a relationship with my phone that I like and screens that I'd like. I don't think I have been as attentive to something as I was.
Even on hunts, though? You hunt all the time, dude.
But 4 hours of just staring in one animal's eyes, I mean, it's like so rare that I even get that opportunity. I would definitely be bored in other circumstances, but it was just something that captured my attention so much that I didn't really have a need or desire or care to look at my screen. And that was something that kind of dawned on me. Oh, this is deeper. This is the original TV, social media. Like this is what kept people's attention and was so compelling before all that kind of stuff.
Well, the TV, even today though, like you can't experience that in a video game, right? You can't experience that in fucking VR. If you walked across a Jaguar in VR, big fucking deal, right? It's not going to make your hair stand up. But experiencing that in real life, like that's an experience, even if you only have it once, right? It's embedded in you. You're always gonna remember that. I'm always gonna remember a snake putting its fucking head in my lap. Always a venomous snake that I had to come to terms with it biting me and say, fuck it. If you're gonna bite me, go for it. Let's lock eyes. And we fucking did. Like that, you don't get that anywhere else. There's nothing that competes with that, right? It impacts you on a level that you can't quantify.
Yeah, and that's honestly what because I'm on this quest myself, you know, I just went on my own, and there's some kind of like wildness that's in my heart that I'm seeking to capture. And, you know, you mentioned some of the other stories. I mean, I've been down to Peru tracking jaguars. I've been to Russia tracking Siberian tigers, Finland for lynx, right? So there's just something in me that is trying to find the wildness in these animals. And yeah, you can't get that from any kind of screen, any kind of digital experience.
Yeah, Boyd Vardy, I think he in his storytelling captures it best, because he talks about it. Lion Tracker's Guide to Life is only 3 hours on Audible. If you haven't read it, we'll link to it in the show notes. It's one of my all-time favorites. It's the first book Bear, as like a 5-year-old, listened to all the way through, where he's like, can you put on Boyd Varton? You call him Boyd Varton. And those stories are captivating, right? Because the art of storytelling, Boyd is mastered, but at the same time, he's lived so many experiences like that. Like, he had a fucking king cobra crawl. He was hiding from a lion or a God, what was it? Might have been a cheetah, but he was hiding from a big cat behind a giant termite hill, like an African termite hill that was, you know, fucking 8 feet tall, him and his dad. And he feels the slithering across the back of his legs. He's wearing shorts, and he glances back and sees a fucking cobra. And he's just like, oh God. I'm like, I love that story. You know what I'm saying? Like, and he's got so many like that. He's fucking had his leg bit off by a crocodile. Like, he's in it, you know, and he talks about coming to the West, how much he misses that. And he's doing good work here. He's sharing stories. He's turning people back to nature. He's speaking to the inner wild man and wild woman in all of us, right? And that's super important. And he's doing medicine work, you know, as a medicine man, and really cool shit. But there's always that longing to be back, you know, to be back where you're in the middle. You're
right.
Not the fucking top of the food chain. You smack dab in the middle where humans have always been, and you have to acknowledge that.
Yeah. Yeah, that sense of, I totally understand where he's coming from, you know, that sense of adventure, the sense of desire to I would say, in my words, would be like connect to higher power through that experience. You know, it's incredibly humbling to acknowledge something that's greater than myself. It's in many ways even more humbling to touch something that is greater than myself.
No doubt. I mean, I think Laird speaks to that, you know, through the power of nature with the giant waves. You know, like he sees, you know, getting towed into a 50-foot wave, and like I can acknowledge that. Anybody who's been tumbled before surfing on 8-foot waves and held under for long enough realizes the respect one must have for the ocean, you know, and it's so vast and so much bigger. You get that too, like if you hike a big mountain and you look out, you're looking from the top of the mountain down, and you're like, damn, I did that. Like there's a real sense of accomplishment, but also you can take in the bigness. Like it fills you in a way that other things can't. You know, the minutia of daily life can't. I love how you've structured your life. You know, I've other than being, be careful how I word this. It's being tied down by a wife and kids. Other than having the commitment and responsibility of fatherhood and being a husband, I fancy myself as somebody that has structured my life in a meaningful but awesome way, where I'm paid to learn. I'm paid to experience dope shit and report back on that. And the better I get, the more wise I get through experience and through the gnosis of learning something and trying it on for myself, the better my brand gets, the better I become at my job, the better I become as a podcaster, as a coach, all those things. And it's really fulfilling to have that. But I also lack some of the freedom I once did to say, I'm going to go to fucking Utah, or I'm going to go on this hunt with Mansal, we're going to the Gobi Desert, that kind of shit, you know? So it's really, I love it living vicariously through your experiences, because it's fucking rad. You know, you get to go do a lot of cool things. Talk a bit about that, you know, just being able to travel and some of the more, you know, meaningful trips that you've gone on where you got to experience other cultures. You know, we just had Hilda Gore on the podcast, who runs the Wise Traditions podcast for the Weston A. Price Foundation. And that's, you know, she prides herself on being able to seek out indigenous wisdoms from all areas of the planet and report that back, you know, and I think that's like the coolest fucking job ever. It's such a brilliant thing to be able to do.
Yeah, so I mean the one that comes to mind immediately is last year, a week after Russia invaded Ukraine, I went to Russia, which was just getting there in and of itself was an adventure, man. I had, our mutual friend J.P. Sears was talking to people he knew, military, Tim Kennedy. Everybody was like, the State Department is saying Americans need to get out of the country, so do not go to the country. I had, my camera guy had been in Afghanistan, so it was just like a couple of crazy kids who are just wanting to go track some big cats. So it took 72 hours to get into the country because we had to go to the only places that allowed flights into Russia. It was wild. But once we got there, that was one of the most incredible experiences of my life because I was shooting a TV show, and so, I really had to think about what is the story here, what is emerging here, and I got to spend time with the Udige, which are indigenous people of Far East Russia, and they look Asian compared to, the traditional Slavic Russians, and their relationship with the Siberian tiger was so different than the Russians' relationship, most Russians' relationship. This one guy, Sasha, that I got to go fishing with and have a conversation with, he told multiple stories where his dogs, his best friends, I mean, this is a guy who lives in a shack around nobody. He is isolated. His community is his dogs. And his dogs have, on multiple occasions, been killed by Siberian tigers. And there's this one moment where he's running after his dog and he stumbles on this cat. Now, mind you, I had a 90-pound cat. These are 400, 500, 600-pound cats. This Siberian tiger is looking at him.
These
over
are the white and black ones?
No, those are that's actually a melanin mutation. They're still the russet color of like cool. the tigers from
Still got
India,
stripes?
but they're bigger. They're just like burly. They got burly big heads. Anyway, so he turns the corner. His dog is being killed by this tiger, and the tiger looks up and snarls at him with these big teeth. And I just imagine what most people would think when they see that, and it's gotta defend my dog, gotta kill this cat who's killing my best friend. And for him, he said, I could never kill something that was so beautiful. Like, this is God in front of me. I could never kill this. And he just stood there in amazement at the beauty of this animal. And that was so moving to me to have his almost childlike wonder with this absolute apex of apex predators. I mean, this thing kills 1,200-pound grizzly bears. It rips them limb from limb. And so that, being able to have that experience and I think about the stories that I had from that. I think about what I get to teach my children and what I get to, bring from this tiny little corner of the earth. And yeah, like you said, it is, these are some of the adventures that I'm just so looking forward to bringing to my children, both in memory, but also hopefully, being able to do that when they're kids too. I don't think my current partner, who I'll probably have children with.
Let's go, buddy. There we go. That's new information. I like it, bud.
Dude, she is an insane adventurer. Like, kind of tops me. So our kids, there's no way they're not gonna be adventure kids.
I like that. Yeah, it's interesting thinking about that. I've thought, when's a good time? I want to take Bear out to Landaloosie with Boyd, because he's met Boyd a few times, and but yeah, international travel with kids, that's a tough one. It's all, Landaloosie ain't cheap, you know this, so there's multiple factors in there. But like, when you think of like things that would change someone's life, going to Maui when I was 13 and surfing for the first time was a really cool adventure. Didn't change my life. Going to Puerto Vallarta a handful of times when I was, in high school, beautiful experiences, loved them with my family. Didn't change my life. I start thinking about things like that. It's like, what would really, that time where you fucking tracked a pack of lions and saw them, and on the way, You know, you got to see rhinos and elephants and in their natural habitat. Like, that would change your fucking life. Like, there's no two ways about it. Like, there's no two ways. When you realize it's not a zoo, they're not doped up, sad, you know, laying in their own feces behind a 15-foot wall. Like, you realize there's nothing. I think about that. Like, even if you're in a you know, what are the cars that they go around in, the Jeep things?
Safari.
You know? Yeah, the Safari.
Vehicles.
Yeah, even the Safari vehicles, right? Like, Boyd's got enough stories where you realize very quickly that thing doesn't keep you safe. It's not like, you know, people get road rage because they've got, you know, there's a difference there. When you add a pane of glass and a little bit of metal around you, you think you're separate from the person that you're yelling at or cutting off. You know immediately when you're there that there's nothing separating the two of you other than space and time, and that they can get to you. And I don't think there's many things you could give a kid that would be more special than that. You know?
Yeah. I really, you know, when I go to Russia and I go track the mountain lion and everything, it is the kid. It's the kid that's making those decisions in me to some degree. And, you know, it brings me alive. And that's really what I'm after, is some kind of aliveness. And I think that everybody, what are we going to do with our one precious life? You know, get an opportunity to, and no matter where one is, if people are listening to this, like, there's an opportunity for that. I know people who will just go in their 5-acre, you know, 10-acre backyard, and they'll just sit under a tree for, you know, a couple nights. And their whole intention is just like, let the wild come to them. Kind of a mini vision quest they create.
Yeah.
Then, of course, there's hunting, which you can, you know, get into. And you don't have to go track lions and mountain lions, is what I'm saying, for people who are listening to this and, you know, think that might be out of reach. But it's such a important part of, I think, our lives, is to have a deeper and deeper connection to nature and the wild things that are in our, you know, on our planet.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. It making me think of Robert Bly, you know, and God, what's the name of that book? Iron John. You know, he talks about the prince leaves the castle, he goes into nature, and he finds the wild man, and the wild man, you know, helps him sever the cord with his mother and actually step into becoming a man with the wild man harnessed. You know, like that's such a trajectory it was for all people. It's not necessarily that anymore, you know, but I think there are people that, like ourselves, that track that. They get a taste of it and they realize, like, oh, here's where the sauce is. You know, like, this is where life becomes real. You know, before I was on the sticks, I was in a game within the game. You know, but I don't want to play a game within the game. I used to think that with, like, Grand Theft Auto, these little mini missions. I'm like, why the fuck would I do that? I want to play the game. I didn't come here to play the mini mission. And then it dawned on me, on mushrooms, I was like, oh yeah, video games. I'm playing a game within the game. I didn't come here to fucking do that. And I think these things that spark that aliveness in us, you know, it's not something that has to be done all the time, right? It is something that it's like fills the cup for a long time. And you still want to do more, but at the same time, there's a fullness that comes from it that I don't think you can get in a lot of other places.
Yeah. You know, as we're talking about this, one thing that I'm remembering is the Dagara tribe. You turned me on to the book by Some. And, you know, what he talks about in the book is how for the Dagara...
This is of Water and Spirit?
Yeah. The first most intelligent beings are plants. The second most intelligent beings are animals. The third most intelligent beings are humans. And for humans to be in touch with and connected to their purpose and their mission on this planet during their lifetime, they have to go to the school of the plants and the animals. And to some degree, I really think the psychedelic renaissance is giving people a really beautiful relationship to plants. It is, you know, whether it be ayahuasca or wachuma, and then even the things that you're doing here, bringing the conversation around regenerative agriculture and the relationship to everything around us, all the plants around us. And also there's also animal medicine. And that is what I experienced, you know, you do ayahuasca, you sit, you know, 6, 7, 8 hours in a maloca. I was staring 4 hours at this mountain lion. I do think that mountain lion medicine, that animal medicine, is so important in that, rewilding of humans today, trying to find purpose, trying to find meaning, and, whether it be hunting, which I do to connect with animals that nourish me, or, finding these big cats and predators that nourish me at a soul, spiritual level. It is an important, part of the equation. And as everybody, we definitely are in a meaning crisis where people feel like they're lacking purpose, they're lacking connection to the divine. And I think a lot of it has to do with, screens and just being in the matrix versus seeing and connecting to the wildness all around us, both plants and animals.
Yeah. There was a guy on Instagram I was fucking scrolling years ago, right during the COVID shit, and he was talking about the inorganic versus the organic. They talk about AI and all these other things, and it's really it's just the whether it's the digital or no matter what it is, there's it's a the simulation of the thing that's good for you, right, versus the thing that's good for you. And I think that in so many ways, my life has improved a shit ton in this past year because I started boxing and kickboxing again once a week. And I didn't realize how much I needed that for me personally, right? Some people that's golf, some people that's running, and I run now too again. But I'm just getting a microdose of this once a week. I'm never going to fucking fight again, but just to go for an hour and a half once a week with a lot of the farm team homies, that fills my cup for the whole fucking week. I look forward to Friday morning. That's when we're going to go rip it up. And then Monday nights and some other nights I'll get on the mats for jiu-jitsu, and I'm coaching my son. And then a couple of days, once or twice a week, I lift weights now. And once or twice a week I go for a run, and I'm getting in the sauna where I can. I'm doing mobility every day. But there's certain pieces there that are, I can't accomplish that just from weights alone. I can't accomplish it just from running alone. I have to get it from the physical interaction of martial arts, and I think the more tools that we have individually that we're drawn to, right? Because it's not one size fits all. It's not everyone go and take an MMA class. No, fucking you might hate that. It takes a long time for somebody to actually be comfortable getting hit in the face. That's actually, you can learn to be comfortable getting hit in the face. Whether you want to learn that or not, that's up to you. But there's so many things that I can't get from fighting that I can only get through hunting, right? And so many things that I get in farming that I only get from having that relationship over and over again, that I get to tend this land, I get to walk this land, I get to, even when I'm not hunting the land with a gun, I'm hunting the land on my walks with Guapo, this little 18-pound Chihuahua Shih Tzu that's 10 years old and can barely see. We're walking around, he stops when I stop. He's sniffing around, he tells me when shit's going off, where to look. And that's a connection point. It's a connection point I don't have in the city. It's a connection point I don't get on other people's land. We got many routes here on this place. For 118 acres, I know which herds like to hang out in different spots, and then we've got our own that we're rotating around, the flock and the herd, the flurd, as Daniel Griffith calls it. And it is super special. It is absolutely super special. Even the plants themselves, like Bear, he picked out a fig tree that we're going to plant by the house, not in the food forest. And we got 7 figs off it in the spring. It was fucking awesome. It was the first time he tried fig, right? First time I actually ate a fresh fig, not like a fig Newton or something like that. And it was just what a cool little way to reconnect. We're giving this as some good organic soil amendments and things like that, and it's producing like crazy in a fucking pot. That's awesome, and that's a little touch point as well. Talk a bit about what you've been doing. You had the TV show. Is that going to come out? Where's it going to come out? You were doing the provide, you wanted to run a test where you could see if the only meat you put in your body was something that you had hunted and killed yourself. And you've been looking for land, right? And still running the hunt. So let's dive into this stuff. Catch me up, because it's been a minute. We only really get to catch up on podcasts, because otherwise I got the kids around and it's like, Uncle Mansal. So,
yeah. So, man, that commitment that I made that we talked about on the first podcast, that was one of the best commitments that I have, made with my life. And it's one of the most meaningful. It's honestly one of the things that has me feel so excited about children, because I know it'll be challenging. I know it won't make a lot of sense. but it's going to be, super meaningful. And yeah, I did it for a year. I've basically since then, I don't purchase meat to bring into my home. It's stuff that I kill myself, or I have a relationship with myself. And it's I can go on ad nauseum, but suffice it to say, it's a very, very profound commitment to make. And there have definitely been times where it's created, tension for me. Like I don't have any meat, and I guess I'm going to be eating a lot of eggs for the next week until I can, get out and actually kill a whitetail. But it is a meaningful process, and that, because of that commitment and because of those early hunting experiences, you came on, I think the second hunting trip that I ever led, and the one that I'll do next week will be 60 in 3 years, right? So that's a lot of facilitating, a lot of, creating these containers, and obviously a lot of evolution, and things change within that period. For me, it's been one of the greatest, training grounds, master's degree, PhD even, in leadership, because the space that I go into, we didn't on our experience, but I use plant medicine now. We use psilocybin. We're,
You got 2 once with you.
That's right.
Not with the carnivore
Not
doc.
the first one. Yeah,
still
not the first
virgin.
one.
I don't know if he'd have been down.
Yeah. We did.
Not then.
Yeah, not then. Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot. Yeah, we've had an experience since then. But that, and this firsthand because you went back out and you hunted after ceremony, and that's a lot of energy to be going through that process, right? And
easily one of the most beautiful experiences of my life.
Yeah,
ever, by far.
Yeah, and that's and to hold that, to try and create that. Now, granted, it's not me. I'm just, God's conduit on the earth, trying to keep the wheels on the bus, so to speak, for this experience to unfold. But it's made me into a much better leader. And so, now luckily I've led some facilitator trainings, and I've got 20 facilitators across the country. Our mutual friend Nathan is Nathan Smith, one of the facilitators, and him and Matt, they lead experiences up in Colorado. So we've done archery, like elk hunts. They lead some backcountry hunting preparation, so just pure skills based, like long range rifle, survival, all that kind of stuff, mountaineering. And then all over the country, there's, in the Pacific Northwest, and experiences. So I'm really wanting this organization to kind of take root and start to spread, well beyond me, because, I don't have any. I've thought a lot about this, and, I have the book Sacred Hunting, and I have, I've talked about it, but it's not me. This whole concept is so old. It's so human. I'm doing nothing more than just bringing back old things and adding some new pieces together. And so, yeah, I'm really in a process right now of the organization trying to empower other people to, go through this themselves. And you probably have people who are listening to this who, they might not want to come on an in-person experience with me, but they hunt. They've hunted their whole life. Maybe they hunted their whole life in Kentucky, and they just sat in a blind, and now they can be inspired to kind of take this to their kids. So this is kind of a really important message for me to get to people, because I think the ripple effect of more people and more children connected to their wildness, connected to the process of life and death, can only mean, positive things for society.
Yeah, more people defending our right to grow our own food, to know that meat is healthy for us. It's probably one of the healthiest things we can put in our body for many people on the planet. And hunted meat would be at the top of the best of the meat, I mean, even Robbie from Force of Nature said that. Number one is something you kill yourself out in the wild, that got to select every bit of food that went into its mouth its whole life.
Yeah.
Like getting that, there's really nothing like it, there is nothing like it. So I think reconnecting people to that and making it available. I love the idea, what you're thinking with your organization reminds me of like the food forest. it takes a lot of help in the beginning, like raising kids. And then at about 15 years or so, we could die and that thing would thrive without us because it's set up from a permaculture design standpoint. And, you're trying, I think what you're doing now is you want to plant enough trees that hold their own seeds to reproduce on their own so the thing can grow on its own and reach more people and make it available to people all over the place, right? I mean, for guys like us, it's like no big deal to fly anywhere in the country or out of the country. And for a lot of people, that is a big deal. So getting it to be local for them. And that's a big deal too, making it available for everybody. I really love that. Yeah, Nate's such an awesome guy. If you guys get the opportunity to go on a hunt with Mansal or Nate Smith, highly, highly recommend both of them. Nate is an incredible cook. He always stays at our house in Austin when he's going to go on a hunt with you, Mansal. And so it's fun because he's really had a lot of experiences, out of these 60. If it's in Austin, he's chilling at our house for at least 1 or 2 days and we get to catch up. So that's been super fun. And he came out, he and his awesome wife came out. I gave him a little wedding gift to Arcadia tickets, and they had a blast with us. So that was lots of fun.
Yeah, I got to officiate his wedding, and
that's dope, dude.
Yeah,
super cool.
So it's been special to see his and yours, and y'all met coming on.
Yeah, brother.
His first sacred hunting experience with you, and so yeah, I mean that's really what the good foundations is giving people who are already in of themselves, like incredible people. An opportunity to.
We had Eric Vaughn, who's now the GM of this farm, was on that hunt with us, and Mike Salemi, who I was close with before, but far closer with now. I mean, I think there is something to that. Not plugging Fit for Service, but that's kind of the idea, is that we build community by bringing people together, putting them through a challenging experience, and letting community foster from that experience. And you're doing the same thing. And I wouldn't say on a smaller scale. There's less people there. But the immersive seems to be something that is even more powerful, per se, because of the fact, I don't want to compare it to Fit for Service, but when there's less people around, you go through something as challenging as a fucking hunt, and then you attach a ceremony to that, like, those are your brothers and sisters in arms from now on. Like, that's just how that works. You come out of that experience, and you know each other on such a deep and intimate level that you're not going to get anywhere else.
Yeah, especially because, we invite the wild when we are out there. I mean, you experienced it. We lost power. We were eating off like propane.
We lost power more than once.
We lost power more than
funny.
Yeah,
and then it wasn't funny because it was so fucking
cold.
It was
so
right
cold.
It was an apocalypse.
It was icy as heck, and yeah, I mean, it was like we went on a moving meditation for ceremony because sitting in the cave just didn't make a whole lot of sense. So, yeah, that's the kind of thing that hunting brings. I think for men in particular, sitting in therapy can be beneficial. And I think men really...
Dr. Will Tagle thought that was nonsense. Yeah. He started off as a therapist, right?
And there's something about being engaged in relationship with nature that's going to put things up to your face, that's going to force you to face certain reflections of yourself that talk therapy just won't do.
Well, talk a bit about since we're not at a deadlock here to end it in an hour, but we are getting towards the end of the podcast. You've since run a number of female-only hunts. Talk a bit about that too.
Yeah, so I have had a few co-ed experiences with women, and now I've started to do women-only, and I've been blown away by the experiences and the way that women show up. And in many ways, things that men cannot physically even do. For example, the first woman to kill an animal, incredibly beautiful story. She's a teacher, English teacher on Long Island. She came with her husband. She was the youngest child of 3, and her 2 older brothers got to hunt her whole childhood with her dad. But she never got a chance to because she was a girl. And so for her, it was really about kind of reclaiming that she could do this. She was capable. She, wanted to go through that process. And Nathan was with her at the time when she killed an animal. One of the things that I'll have people do oftentimes is carry it for some portion of the time because I want to, metaphorically just take responsibility for the burden of taking a life and physically feel it. So she was carrying the animal, and she later shared with me, she said while she was carrying the animal, she started her moon cycle. And she said she wasn't supposed to. It was like 2 weeks off.
Whoa.
And there was just such a, for her, spiritual, like, she's taking blood, she's giving blood relationship.
Yeah, give and receive at the same time.
Yeah, it was really powerful for her. And so we just had an all-female experience with 7 women. And, Lindsay, Animal-Based Bay, she was there.
Yeah.
So she was there with a group of women, and it was really special. And I try to create a space. Obviously with the sacred part of sacred hunting, I create a space that is intending for us to connect with our emotions and feelings. It is about as soft of a hunting experience as you can imagine in terms of allowing people to feel and go through those things and feel we did. Every circle that we had an opportunity to share, I mean, there were 3 to 5 people crying in the process, and it was, for me, it was just really powerful to see people go through that transformation. We had a lot of challenges, whether it be a wounded animal or not getting anything for dinner on Saturday night. Oftentimes, at least one meal is kind of dependent on if we kill an animal. So there's a little bit of skin in the game, so to speak. And the women, they had to face a lot, like I have a leadership team of males, and we're all, I hand select them, and I believe there's a certain consciousness, a certain representation of masculinity that's in a more, sacred or divine form. And that can be confronting to women. Like, whoa, this is what, relating with men could be like. And also, whoa, we're being told what to do, right? I have a strong container. So certain times you're not allowed to talk with other people. And
that came up with an all women's group.
Exactly.
Amazing. I would never expect that.
Exactly. And
my son's going to hunt with me tomorrow morning, and first time he's coming with me, and we'll just be here on the land. But that is going to be the sharpest curve for him to get around. Can he? How long can he be quiet? How long can he listen and just listen and step quietly and just listen? And we practice, tiptoeing around the house like we're hunting, and I think he's got the stock down. It's just the constant talk. Like he's like the kid in the fucking van in Home Alone. He's like, what kind of engine you got in here? Is this diesel or gasoline? What's the horsepower on this guy? Is it a 12-passenger van or a 15-passenger van? I heard that you guys were flying to Miami, but the plane got checked. He just keeps going and going and going. He's like, I don't know, kid, leave me alone. Like, that's him in a nutshell. So, like, I don't know at 8 if he's ready for it, but he's got a lot of friends. Like Tucker's boy, Bishop, was just successful on a buck with his sister, and he's certainly interested, but there's a point where the rubber's got to hit the road, and that's the shit people don't realize till you're there, and it's like, like this is how it's done, or we don't even fucking see an animal. If it's not done a certain way, like we won't see one the entire time. Like you go pee before you go out on the land, because you start pissing on the land, like you won't fucking see one. Like they're gonna know you're right there. So I mean, there's so many things like that. That's an interesting piece, though. I think from a women's empowerment point of view, and it comes up in various ways in Fit for Service as well, where like we're doing things to bring about the remembrance of the divine feminine and the embodiment of that, and at the same time how that's balanced, the yin with the yang, like that is a balancing point there. The one isn't better than the other, and you could, depending on how woke you are, you'd argue that one has been in total control and at the demolishment of the earth and the disempowerment of the people all across the world. Sure, and there's a positive side to that force as well that needs to be reenacted. It's not to be you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater and get rid of masculinity, like fucking James Cameron saying that testosterone is a toxin. Like, no, Dippy, testosterone is 100% necessary, and it's highest in women and men, not just highest in men. It's a lot less in women, but it's still their largest, the most abundant hormone. Like, that's a fucking big deal.
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing about, I think, this space, especially for women with sacred hunting, is because there is structure and there is a decor. There's a way that it has to be done to be successful, right? We have a mission, so at some level, there's a masculine component to it, and it will provide them with an opportunity to, still be feminine, but be contained in certain situations by the container that I create. And I also see all the triggers and all the things that come up for good and for worse as being the medicine.
Yeah,
and,
no doubt.
And that's, I think, to a T, all the women that have come on experiences have had, by their own account, great experiences, and I'm proud of that. I know that there's always room to make the space better, and also I've really appreciated the challenge of holding space for 7 women.
Hell yeah, brother. Well, I'm excited. I know Leah, Eric's wife, and Tosh, my wife, want to get out there with you, and I think that'll be profound and amazing once the kids are a little bit older, getting them out for sure. We got a wrap. I want to do one more lap on the whitetail, but is there anything that you've got coming up that you want to talk about? Things that you're unrolling for this next year? What's happening right now?
Yeah. Well, to the point that I mentioned earlier of getting this into people's hands more, by early next year, I'm going to have a journal. I'm going to have a journal that basically will take the best parts of a hunting experience that I bring people through and will allow you to go through that yourself. So kind of like a 5-minute journal, but instead it's like, 30 pages you have before you go out on the hunt, certain things to do. Like one of my favorite activities is writing a love letter to the animal. And then there's, reflections during the hunt, and then afterwards, with the adversity and things that can facilitate transformation in day-to-day life. So I'm excited about that. Coming next year, but I've just bought land in Washington State. I'm going to be leading some experiences in Washington and in the Pacific Northwest. I'm also probably going to be leading fewer in-person experiences myself personally as I work with the land, as I start to, grow things on the land, as I start to plant those seeds, and, children and house and everything is probably in the next 3-5 years. So, as I start to have fewer, in-person experiences, would love to have, people join. So yeah, next March, I've got a slew of them, and people can, visit, to find out more. And then for people who come on a hunt and they just want to go to the next level, I'm going to start taking people to go find some mountain lions too.
Beautiful, brother. Where can people find you online, and where can people learn more?
So sacredhunting.com. That's the simplest place for all the in-person experiences that I lead. And then I'm most active on Instagram, which is just my full name spelled out, MansaldEnton.
Mansal Denton. Well, we'll have it all linked in the show notes. Dude, I love you, brother. You've been a huge impact on my life. I realized, when Saladino brought me on that hunt, love Paul. Absolutely love Paul. Wasn't a huge fan of the group per se. There was a lot of fanboys. Met some cool people, but I realized I was on the hunt to meet you. And I've had massive, amazing experiences with you thus far. I've continued to meet amazing people like Uncle Nate, and I've also grown closer with friends that came on that trip. Eric and I have never been closer. He's one of my best friends. Thanks to having gone through those experiences with you, and you have set these containers in a way where there's maximum transformation, maximum beauty, maximum experience with very little downside. And that's hard to do. It's really hard to do. I've guided my old man in ceremony. I've done a couple of experiences like that, and those all come with unique challenges. And it's apparent, knowing that you apprenticed for so long under Dr. Will Tagle, that you really carry that medicine strong inside you. So it's my pleasure and honor to be with you, brother. It's my honor to have you on the land, and I'm so stoked for what's coming from you, brother. It's going to be dope seeing you step into the game as a dad and as a purveyor and steward of the land. It's going to be really cool.
Yeah, thank you for that reflection, my friend. I appreciate that Will, and that you can, bring him back into our relationship. So, yeah, it's been amazing to get to learn from afar as you've, raised your children. And even though I don't have children yet, it's all been filed away, and I'll be using it. So thank you.
Amazing, brother.